recording. So now that we have our one alarm done, we can try to start duplicating this. Ideally, we would put this in a table view, but for now I'm just going to add another one to show how we might use some of this stuff, and show you a concept of what they call tags in the controls. So I'm going to duplicate this whole alarm structure and move it down here. And we'll call this alarm 2. And since I duplicated it, it has all the same looks like some of them are duplicated. So the action for the alarm time is set to go to the same place. So if I hover over this connection, both of these alarm actions are going to trigger this function. Okay, so which is fine, but we really need to know which one triggered. They both need to pull up a date view, which is fine, but we need to add some additional information. So the alarm edit text here is going to be sent in this sender object. So we get this UI text field here, but there's an additional property we can use with this called a tag. And if we scroll down, if we're looking at the attributes, like I keep calling them properties, the attributes here in the view, we have this tag number, and you can see it's a number field. It will only allow numbers. So we could make the alarm 1 be number 1, and we could make alarm 2 be number 2. So now that's just a property that's set on that sender, and we can look at that. We could do something like we could print out the gotta get your right stuff in here. We could print out the tag. And it should be the sender dot tag. Oop, why doesn't it like that? Print, of course. All right, so when we get to this function, I'm gonna stop it right here, and we can tell which alarm was triggered based on this tag that gets sent along with it. So we can use that tag to change functionality based on which one was selected. So let's run this guy. So it's mostly a way to save code, make the code be more dry. So if I click on the date field for the alarm 1, it comes here, and the sender.tag was 1, which we saw down here. We can continue, and it sets an alarm. I can then go to my second alarm, and it prints out tag 2. Nice, eh? So we can add that functionality. We can make use of that to set the right fields. Because right now, if I set this alarm, I gotta continue, I guess. Let's undo that and continue and choose a date. It sets the original text field up here, right? Even though I'm checking this guy. It sets the original one up here. So we need to change that to make use of that. So where in the code is that text field being changed? We're calling the date picker, and it passes in the function that gets called back when they choose a date, right? So we need to go to this date picker value changed, which all it does is call set date time text edit, and which sets the date. And so that's hard coded to only set the text field for that particular alarm. Does that make sense so far? So how can we change this to be more generic, to allow multiple alarms or text fields to be set? Any ideas? Pass an argument. Okay, so what do we get when the callback happens? We get a full sender, and we don't get a chance to we don't get the information. That's interesting. We can't get at any additional information here. All right, so when we come in, this is the function that gets called when they click on the text field. We set up a date picker object, and we set up a callback function to call us back, but there's no way to pass data into this callback function directly. So we can make use of this tag by setting the date picker view tag to be the sender tag. So we're passing that into this date picker view. So it's a way of, through the back door, adding data to this date picker. So then that shows up on the screen. The user selects a date. This function gets called when they choose a date. And at this point, we have that date picker back again. We can use the tag from there that we just set, and we can call our set, let's see, where am I at? Set date time text edit. We can pass the date that comes back, and as well as the tag. So we can pass in the tag is an int, and we're going to call it by passing in the sender.tag. How come it doesn't like int?
Wanted a capital I.
Sorry?
I think it wants capital I.
Yeah, it's always something. Thank you. See, very good. And then this guy doesn't like. Gotta put our label for that variable in there. And then this sends the notification off to the user, which has all this information here that we're gonna get back. And so I think we're gonna have to do the same thing here. We're gonna have to send the tag along with this guy so that we can get that out and send the right information. This will be tag of type int. All right. Does that make sense so far? We're getting the tag, we're setting it so it goes through that callback function. When that gets back to us, we're sending that along to these underlying routines. And now we can make use of that tag to use that to do something different. So let's first fix up this alarm system here. Now, this is probably not the way I would do it in the long run, but I want to show you how I would typically think about multiples of these, and then it's ripe for refactoring. But we're going to, not here. When it calls back, here's the code that actually sets the specific control on the screen, the text that we get from the date. All right, so this guy is called what is this guy called here? It is well, I don't have one for that. All right, so I've got the alarm time here. This is the first one. I need an output for this guy, and we'll call it alarm time 2. And so then, depending on the tag that comes in here, obviously this isn't going to be dry. If tag equals 1, we're going to set the alarm time text. Else we're going to set the alarm time 2 text. Does that make sense? So we're making use of this tag to force which control is going to get reset. So with just adding some parameters, I'm able to reuse this code a little better. So let's see if that works, just setting the date in the text view first. So I click on this guy, I set a date in the future. It sets it right here. I click on this guy and set a date for an hour in the future, and it sets it. So I now have got 2 different text fields filled in with a date using one date picker, and just passing the data back and forth. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, Dave, that's so cool.
Let's see if it works.
Huh?
Let's see if it works.
Well, it works. It sets the date. I haven't fixed it to send the data yet. So let's, I want to set the color of this guy, background color, so that I can see the text fields. I don't like white on white. This doesn't work good. All right, so any questions on that? Passing that data all the way through the using that tag. All right, so then when we get down to the notification, this is going to be slightly different based on the tag. The date is already set fine when it gets called, so that's no big deal. The note text and the user information is going to be different for each one. So I'm going to put those together so that I can put an if around them. I can say if tag equals 1, do this, else
Missing closing bracket.
sorry?
Missing closing bracket.
On their first,
Oh,
block.
I knew that. I was just checking, see if you're awake there. All right, so this one is going to be alarm number 2. Let's see if we can just set this to tag. Yes. So I can take that out of my if statement, right? That's separate. And I don't need that one, so that'll set it for both of them. And then this one is going to be my nodes text. I need a different output for that guy. So this one is that one. I need to add a new outlet for my nodes text 2. So that I can set it here and take away that nice little garbage there. Right, so let's run this. And I'll set alarm 1, take your meds. Alarm 2, take your meds. And we'll set this guy to be 1 minute in the future, and this guy to be 2 minutes in the future. And then we'll lock our screen so we can see it trigger. And wait. And we should get 2 different alarms going off. We're waiting. So it hit 8:10, but again, it can't be exact. It's not exact. We're telling the operating system to send us a notification, and when it gets around to it, it sends it. So it did. It finally got through all of its cleanup stuff. It sent us alarm 1, and now when we hit 8:11 and some number of seconds, it should hit at that point. All we're doing is we're saying, put us in the queue to make a notification as soon as you get to it after this date. It's not exact. We can't get it exact. Where are we? Okay, we resume. We got alarm 2. It closes the other one. I mean, it dims it. So now we've got 2 different alarms, alarm 2, alarm 1. They both triggered, and we could continue to do that 10 different times, right?
Sounds like a lot of work.
It sounds like a lot of work, right? So the first thing I see that we could do is that each one of these is kind of like an object on the screen, right? Each one of these things is an object. So, and I'm having to look at pieces of that object based on this tag number. So what data structure you think would be useful that I can associate a number with an object?
An array.
An array.
Objects.
An array of stuff, an array of objects, because the array already gives us an index into that, and we can look that up and find out which one it is. So, but it would be nice if I could create an object that had all of the different data points in here that I needed, right? So let's create an alarm object, right? So let's stop this, create a new file called it's just going to be a Cocoa Touch. It's just a normal class, so we'll just use a Cocoa Touch class. It's not going to be a subclass of anything. It'll be just an alarm. Class Swift. Oh, this forces it to be a subclass. Why?
Was there an array?
Yeah, I don't want to do that though. I just want a like we did an animal class. Remember, we want to just have a. Let's just call it a Swift file. There we go. And we want to call it alarm dot Swift. Put it in our BMI, and then we're going to create a class called, oh, that was nice, called alarm, and we'll have different things in here. So what do we have in here that we need? Well, we need an alarm time. And it's going to be, we can store the whole text field in here. We can have the notes text, which is a UI text field. We can have recurring, which is a UI switch. Active, which is a UI switch. What else do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 things, right? And we have to, so what is the problem with this? Use of undeclared type UI switch. Why is that undeclared?
You're not importing UI kit.
Very good, very good. So we have to import the UI kit, and that should set those guys up for us. Has no initializers, so we need to create a method that creates an alarm. So we're going to pass in the alarm time, the come on, the notes text, the text field, the recurring switch, active switch. I have my so I have to call it init. It's not Java. I had to restart recording, so now I can set my alarm time to be equal to my alarm time. And we have to do self to get those right. And we need the notes text. We need the recurring, and we need active. All right, so that creates our little object that we can store stuff in. Any questions on that so far? Seems pretty straightforward. Just a nice way to store everything. So then we need to, when we create these, we need to create our little alarm array. If we can get the array declaration right, which is something like just array. Let's see. So we need a alarm of type alarm. And that's an array of blank alarms. Then during our initialization, we can create our new object. God, too many languages. Which is done like never get the syntax right. We need to create a new alarm with the alarm time is going to be alarm time the notes is going to be notes text, and recurring is going to be recurring switch, and my active is going to be my, I don't have anything, oh, switch active, there we go. So that keeps a new alarm object. I don't have the syntax right. Append. Is that right? New? Is new right in this language? Come on. Doesn't like new. Nope, wrong language. Okay, there we go. So we have to, append takes an argument, so we pass in the whole new alarm that we create, and then we'd have to do the same alarms dot append of a new alarm where the alarm time is alarm time 2, and the notes is notes text 2. And I don't have a recurring theme for each of these. Oh, might as well fix those. So I've got to have an outlet for, let's see, I have my active. I need my new switch active. I need a recurring, which I have. I need a new recurring. Take it off of there. Got my notes. All right, so now I can pass in my recurring switch 2 and my switch active 2. All right, so now I've got, well, so you think I have an array of 2 alarms in my alarms array. Right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if I could use those tags, then inside of here, I could, instead of having to do if statements, I could use that alarm array using that tag as the index into my alarm objects. Does that make sense?
Tag minus 1.
Well, yeah, so instead of doing tag minus 1,
Or set your first tag as 0.
exactly. So let's set my tags for this guy to be in the view to be 0, and this one to be 1. So they correspond back to my objects. All right, so we're out of time. I got to switch. We'll finish that tomorrow, where we'll use the alarm arrays here to set the data, so we don't have to do an if tag anymore. So we'll get a little cleaner, step at a time cleaner. All right, any questions on that? All right.